Remove that mute button. I always forget to unmute myself. But welcome to another edition of Win TV. I'm your host, Denise Rollard Barnes, and I want to thank you for joining us today. And, I want to thank Desmond and the folks who did the show last week. I was actually down in Montgomery, Alabama for the Association for the Study of African American Life and History conference. Amazing, amazing conference. And I wish I could have joined you just to let you talk or see some of the folks that were there. Over 180 workshops, luncheon, tours of Montgomery. Amazing. And true confessions, this is my first time in the state of Alabama. I'm sure many of you all might understand why. But, there's so much history there. And that's part of our show today, as a matter of fact. So I want to thank Chevry and Desmond and all of the team who pitched in last week at the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation annual leadership conference. A lot going on last weekend, and we tried to make sure that we were in those places so that we could report to you on what you may have missed if you were not fortunate enough to be at those places as well. But anyway, we want to thank you for reading the Washington Informer and supporting us and engaging with us. It just so happens that this week was National Newspaper Week. And in honor of National Newspaper Week, and because you enjoy reading the Washington Informer, we hope you picked up a copy of this week's issue. They are available on newsstands now. And you can also read the digital edition online at www.washingtoninformer.com. If you're watching on Facebook, go ahead and hit share so your followers can see the broadcast. And if you're watching on Twitter, be sure to follow us and we will follow you back. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Washington Informer TV. That's one word, Washington Informer TV. Go ahead and subscribe. We certainly want to count you as a member of the Washington Informer family. Be sure to let us know if we are missing an important issue you want to see covered in the newspaper or on our website. So you can send us an email to news@washingtoninformer.com. Again, send us an email. Let us know what's going on in your neighborhood, in your community, at your business, at your church, at your school, at your organization, your sorority, your fraternity, whatever may be going on. We can't get everywhere, but we'll do the best that we can. But we won't know that unless you invite us or share that information with us. So do so at news, NEWS, at WashingtonInformer.com. So big news yesterday, and we're going to talk a lot about this later on at the end of the show. But President Biden made history yesterday when he announced that he would be pardoning or ask for pardon of all federal offenses for simple marijuana possession, making a major step toward decriminalization. That means a lot for a lot of folks in our community. And so we're going to talk about that with the Washington Informer team and a local person who works with returning citizens. You all may know him, Roach Brown. We'll be talking to him and Stacey Brown and James Wright at the end of the show. We want to get into the details of this, but we will definitely be continuing to cover that over the coming weeks. A federal appeals court ruled earlier this week that DACA, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, is illegal, but will continue to allow current recipients to renew their status. DACA has protected approximately 600,000 young immigrants from deportation. The deadline to register to vote in Virginia is October 16, but a technical problem with Virginia's voter registration system has led to delays in the processing of new voter registrations and updates. Anyway, the Virginia Department of Elections said there was no data lost and are hoping to clear the resulting backlog in time to notify registered voters of their polling places. So stay tuned. WMATA, Metro, a lot of news going on over there at WMATA, but WMATA has launched a warning campaign to alert riders of fines associated with fare evasion. In Maryland and Virginia, fare evasion, not invasion, but evasion. In Maryland and Virginia, fare evasion is a criminal offense, while evaders in the District of Columbia receive civil citations. And we have heard from a lot of Metro riders who are just scratching their heads and wondering what can be done for folks who believe in paying their fares, as they observe so many who jump over the gate and do different things that mean that they have not paid their fares. So watch out, because action is taking place to make sure that that is addressed. And Black History note, Fannie Lou Hamer's 105th birthday was October the 5th. And thankfully, we are saying that you can check out the short film on Fannie Lou Hamer and others, airing Sunday, October 9th. And if you want to see that film, go to Chromatic Black 3. That's Chromatic Black 3. You can see that on the announcement down at the bottom of the screen. And that's on Twitter for more information. So check them out. And hopefully we may have someone on the show a little bit later to give us more details. Our guests today are Eliza and Lily Dorton, sisters and high school students who created a civil rights history app and tour that they want to talk to us about. Eliza and Lily will be speaking with our reporter, James Wright. We will also kick off National Breast Cancer Month, and we'll be joined by epidemiologist Rebecca Siegel and breast cancer advocate Jacqueline Beal. We hope to be joined also by Abina Bloodworth, co-founder of Chromatic Black, as we mentioned earlier, who will be with us to talk about the Ida B. Wells Fund grant. So we've got a lot going on. We want you to stay tuned. But before we bring on our guests, we will go to Curtis Knowles, who will give us this week's news.
This is WIN TV News, bringing you the news that matters. The OPEC alliance announced Wednesday that it will cut oil production by 2 million barrels a day, a move that will likely send gas prices high again after severe high prices at the pump. It represents the largest cut in production since the start of the pandemic. In a statement, the Biden administration said it was disappointed in the decision, calling it, quote, short-sighted, in light of global energy prices already lifted higher by Russia's invasion of the Ukraine. Capital Economics Research Group now expects a global oil price to rise from $93 per barrel to $100 per barrel, with the U.S. benchmark prices also rising from $88 to $92. Caroline Bain, chief commodities analyst for Capital Economics, said, quote, we had always expected supply growth to slow later this year and into 2023, but this latest OPEC action has reinforced our view that prices will end the year a little higher. Metro has launched a warning campaign to alert riders of fines associated with fare evasion in each jurisdiction. The warning campaign will start with notices on digital signs in the Metro system, and after the digital signs run for 2 weeks, Metro police officers and other agency personnel will begin distributing flyers to fare evaders with the same warning information. The warning period will terminate in November, after which Metro officers will issue citations to anyone caught not tapping smart trip cards or mobile phones at fare gates, exiting emergency gates in the station, or not tapping fare boxes on Metro buses. 2 men who allegedly posed as federal agents while lavishing gifts on Secret Service agents assigned to the White House have been convicted. The men in question, Aryan Tarazadeh, 40, and Haider Ali, 35, of Washington, D.C., Both men had firearms, ammunition, body armor, tactical gear, as well as surveillance equipment, with prosecutors saying, quote, that they pose a potential risk to national security. Ali pled guilty on Wednesday to conspiring to impersonate a federal officer, bank fraud, as well as other charges, and his co-defendant, Tarazadeh, pled guilty in August. Court filings show that the four Secret Service agents were placed on leave as a result of interaction with the duo, one of whom was assigned to First Lady Jill Biden.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Curtis. And I am excited to bring on Washington and former, I'll call him city reporter, James Wright, who's with us. And more than that, James is our resident historian. He can talk about almost anything in history and give you at least a couple of facts that I didn't know, and maybe a lot of folks don't know. James, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Denise. So good to see you.
Likewise, likewise. And I'm glad that you decided that you would be willing to interview the Dorton sisters. I'm really excited about what these young ladies have done to bring the civil rights history of this city to life. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can introduce Eliza and Lily.
Okay. Viewers, please meet Eliza and Lily Dorton. They are students in Bethesda's Holton Arms School, and they've done something which is rather unique, and they will talk more about it. Eliza and Lily, how are you?
We're great. How are you? Thank you so much for having us on today.
Thank you. What made you, what is your interest in terms of civil rights history, Black history?
Right. So we were inspired to actually create this app. We stumbled upon this honestly by accident. In May of 2020, George Floyd was murdered due to police brutality. And living in Washington, D.C., the Black Lives Matter movement, we saw how they responded. And we not only wanted to support the movement and be allies of the movement, but we also wanted to take action, do something, educate ourselves. And while attempting to educate ourselves, we came across various hidden landmarks that were completely whitewashed by the dominant culture of the white male and that history in DC. And we wanted to bring that to light because we feel like it's important, especially for schools in this area, to understand where we live, where we came from, and the history of one of the most powerful cities in the world.
Very interesting. Go ahead, please.
I personally wanted to start the app. I really didn't want to start the app. We stumbled upon this by accident, but I was really interested in the Black Lives Matter movement, and I wanted to learn about other people, places, and organizations that had a similar effect on Washington.
Fascinating. Let's hone in on what you talk about in terms of the app. Why an app as opposed to Facebook or Instagram?
Right. So we wanted to create a very interactive way to get this information across to people. We have done plenty of tours of DC, and we thought that what we remembered most from the tours we've done are audio tours where we're able to have free reign of the app, pick different locations on the app without following a specific trail. And I think an Instagram and a Facebook those are two forms of social media that are great for getting out information, but there's so many Instagram accounts that you can skip across some of those posts and they don't really reach out to people. So we thought an app was the best way to really get this information across. And we also have a website as well at civilrightshistorydc.com, where you can also download the app from there. But we wanted to share this information the best and most interactive way we could.
Very interesting. You consulted a Black historian from Suffolk University. Talk a little bit about that, and in your answer, explain, did you consult anybody in terms of Washington, D.C., maybe from Howard or University of District of Columbia historians?
So in terms of other historians, we consulted Rahul Amin Kwander, who runs Kwander Quality, and we had a conversation with him over the phone, and he gave us a lot of insight and a lot of history that we otherwise wouldn't be able to find online. He sort of laid it out like a timeline, and he gave us this information after we had finished the app, so hopefully we can use that in further updates and things like that.
Right, and we were able to talk to the professor from Suffolk University, and I think it was really important because while creating this app, we did feel that it was necessary to consult members of the Black community, and we wanted to have him review the language of our app and just every location that was in it, and make sure that everything would be come across to people as sort of an inspiration, and we didn't want anything to be insensitive. And so that was necessary for us. Now, he gave us feedback on different locations on our app, and he reviewed the scripts that Eliza and I wrote ourselves, which are found on the app, read by the voice actor that we chose for this app. And in the future, we want to add more locations to our app eventually, and we want to expand this further. There's plenty of areas in Alexandria and Maryland, and all across the country. And so while expanding our app, we really want to work with other people and reach out to other historians or professors that could help us and give us insight into how we can expand this further.
Just want to slip this question in.
Mm-hmm.
As students of history, how did you feel finding out for sure that it was African Americans, enslaved African Americans, that built the U.S. Capitol and the White House? How did facts like that, pique your interest in history?
Well, for me, I'm a senior in high school. I've made it through almost every high school history class you have to take. I'm taking government right now. And I think there was just a lot of surprise and shock, because we're lucky enough to go to a school that is really trying to diversify their curriculum. So we're very lucky. We learned about the 1619 project that was done by the New York Times, and we're lucky to have that type of history curriculum. However, we also spend a lot of time on the founding fathers and the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and all of these monuments in DC that resemble or represent white men and the founding of our history, as saying it, giving them credit. And while they do deserve a lot of credit, nobody really knows the history behind the building of the White House, the building of the U.S. Capitol, and that's what we were trying to bring out. Initially, that's what we wanted to bring out. One of the Lafayette Square Park, right in front of the White House, was a former slave trading post. And Eliza and I had no idea. None of our friends, classmates, and teachers knew of this. And so while discovering how little we knew, that was the point. And so hopefully further, like I said, we do want to expand, and we do want to attempt to include this in a high school curriculum, especially for history classes in DC and schools in DC that should know what was here before we were.
Mm-hmm. Excellent points. Who benefits from the app?
I think anyone who comes to DC, it doesn't matter if you live in DC or if you're a tourist visiting, you can all benefit from the app. Even if you don't even have to go to the locations to use the app. You can be at home on your couch and learn about a specific location or a person, or you can open your phone and see, oh wow, I'm right near this location. Why don't I go check it out? So I think it's really anyone, tourists or residents of Washington.
Right. And like Eliza said, residents of Washington, we really want to emphasize the importance of knowing where you live and knowing the history of where you live, especially in a city like Washington. And we think it's really important we think this information is necessary to educate other people, because our country has the ideals of liberty and equality. And a lot of people around the country have prevented the country from fully embracing those ideals for all people. And so that was our goal, to teach people and educate on the history of civil rights in Washington, D.C., so that we can take a step forward into embracing those ideals of liberty and equality.
I'll slip this question in. As you know, Black History Month tends to focus on certain individuals: Martin Luther King, Harriet Tubman, some folks, Booker T. Washington, and others. It depends. Do you see this as an opportunity to diversify Black History Month, or even Black history in general, in terms of the knowledge of the African Americans?
I do. I think that when Eliza and I were doing our research, and one thing that you can see that comes across in our app and our website are not only the various landmarks, but the various people that we were able to showcase in our app, such as Alan Locke, Duke Ellington, Alma Thomas, Mary McLeod. And so we wanted to not only bring landmarks to light, but we also wanted to bring these people, such as Alan Locke, who was a professor at Howard University and was a philosopher. And so there's so many people, like Eliza has talked about also, there's so many people that might not be as famous, but had or well known, but had a really great impact on the civil rights movement and where we are today. And so that's what we also wanted to bring out in our app. And I think Black History Month is a great way to add in more names and faces to the civil rights movement and the civil rights history.
Fantastic. What are the next steps? I mean, you talked a little bit about it before, but what are the next steps in terms of the app?
Personally, our next steps are to expand our locations. So right now we have 17 and they're all in Washington, but we really want to expand, especially to Virginia, Alexandria, because our original list had locations that were there, and we decided to cut it down just to minimize the locations. But there's a lot of rich history in Alexandria, especially, so we really want to add on locations.
Right. And so we did start out with a 25 to 30 list of landmarks while beginning this journey of creating this app. And obviously, to make it simple and to start out, we wanted to start with just 17. But like Eliza said, there are so many hidden landmarks and uncovered landmarks that many people don't know about. And going forward, we will start to include them in our app and expand it a lot more.
Well, at some point in time, the producer's telling me that Denise may jump on into this conversation, which is excellent. Let me just say that how do people find? Okay, well, here she is. She wants to ask something. Please go ahead. The mute button.
Yeah, I am just so thrilled with what you all have done, and I will say that I have just downloaded the app. I'm sorry, you all. I'm busy downloading the app. But James, you can keep going. I'm just trying to get this. Yeah, but go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. How do we find the app?
So the app is on the App Store under DC Civil Rights Tour, and it is the only app that comes up when you look that up. And then also we have a website, civilrightshistorydc.com, where you can also download it from there. And both the app and the website have pages about Eliza and I and our inspiration and how we created the app. And to get this information, obviously, we had to do a lot of research, and under each location are the sources that we use to get this information, so people can refer back to those sources as well. And we also have Instagram handles and Facebook and Twitter under DC Civil Rights Tour.
You know, this is interesting because Black history is happening almost every day. As you know, on October the 1st, the new Supreme Court term started, and an African-American woman now sits on the Supreme Court, but she is also a DC resident. So what I'm asking is, as Black history continues to evolve, will you update the app to reflect that?
Yes, we will. Obviously, our goal right now, and as starting out the app, is to uncover hidden landmarks, and that was the purpose of the app, because there aren't many tours that do that in DC. But I also think it is important, and I think that could be an important step in either creating a website or just a blog post that would continually update based on recent events and current events.
So James and Eliza and Lily, I got it. I'm good.
Great.
I'm straight. I'm gonna see what you got here. That, you know, even those of us who are native Washingtonians don't know everything about the city, right? And so I know there's some things I can learn from your app. So I'm going to spend time this weekend going through and maybe even visiting some of those places. On a technology side, I'm curious. Have you all done apps before, and how did you figure out how to create an app?
Right. So you can.
So we were lucky enough to have really supportive parents who wanted to see this app all the way through. So we had an app developer help us along the way, as we also helped inserting the information. We wrote all the information. This is both of our first apps. We've never created an app before. So we got to learn actually a lot about the technology side of things as well, like how the app sort of starts on a website and then it becomes an app, and how to input and how to update the app.
Right. And I want to add that Eliza and we did the research I think fall of 2020, and we're done. And the app couldn't launch until just 2 weeks ago on September 22nd. So that shows, and what we learned about that is the whole process of having the App Store have to approve the app various times, and how there were definitely many rounds that we had to take to go through, which was whether fact checking or making sure things worked, and taking the app off the App Store and putting it back on, and testing it out various times. So like Eliza said, we had very supportive parents that were helping us, and from there we were able to work with the app developer closely, and have a lot of people that supported us.
Wonderful. It sounds like you have a very supportive school as well, because your teachers have given you this time to spend with us when you could be in class right now. But I want to thank you, and James as well. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing this. And I'm hoping that more people will look at. Oh, I lost it, but I'll go back because I did download it, so I'm in good shape right now. So I just in closing, we talked about it a little off screen, but you know, what's in the future for you all? What do you want to do personally in your lives? You're getting ready to graduate pretty soon, Lily and Eliza. You're not far behind, graduating from high school. What's next?
So Eliza and I, growing up in Washington, we've always been attached and had attachment to public policy, and specifically social justice. But I've had a lot of experience with politics in the area. I served as a United States Senate page this summer, and I was a congressional intern in June as well. And so I am really trying to pursue a career in politics, and hopefully become an advocate for issues such as social justice in the area that I'm from. And so I see myself, I didn't mention this before, but I am planning to go to law school, let's hope I get in, but I am planning to go to law school and get a law degree, and take it from there. But I do see myself having a future in politics in DC.
Wonderful. Eliza?
Well, I still have a couple years to figure that out.
Yes.
I'm not totally sure what's going on, but I definitely want to study some form of political science. And I'm not sure what I want to do in the future, but something along those lines. I'm definitely not as definite about it as Lily is.
Well, the Washington Informer will celebrate its 58th anniversary in a week. And we hope that once you launch your political career, Lily and Eliza, whatever your next steps are, I know you said you were interested in journalism. Remember us, okay? Remember the Washington Informer, because we certainly will be keeping our eyes on the two of you. And especially as this app grows, this is a great contribution to the city. And we really appreciate you taking time to talk to us about it.
Thank you so much for allowing us to come on here and share our story. And we really appreciate your time and your generosity towards us.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, James.
Thank you.
James, I'll see you in a little bit. All righty. Yeah, so I don't know about you all, but I think that is tremendous. And Eliza and Lily, I think, represent what so many young people in this city are doing. And so we've really got to give them an opportunity to give them some exposure. And so this is part of what WIN TV is all about. So I'm very excited I got a press release and I said, okay, let's do this. So again, going back to the topic, let's stay on point here, Denise. This is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So I'm very, very happy to bring on Rebecca Siegel and Jacqueline Beal. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
I don't know if you all are as inspired as I am, but from the work that they've done. But now it's your opportunity to inspire us to make sure that we go and take care of ourselves. Rebecca is a cancer epidemiologist and senior scientific director of surveillance research at the American Cancer Society. And Jacqueline Beal, who is just this morning helped to kick off Prince George's Breast Cancer Month. You are a 2-time 19-year breast cancer survivor. Bless you, bless you. And you serve as the National Ambassador for American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network. So we know a little bit about the two of you, but we're going to spend some time now to get to know a little bit more. So Rebecca, welcome.
Thank you.
And
I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. We're glad to have you. So there was a report released last week, and we want to talk about this report as it relates to, I guess, cancer registries and the information that the American Cancer Society has been able to pull together. Can you talk about the report, please?
Sure. So it actually published this past Monday, October
Okay.
3rd, for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And this is a report that we come out with every couple of years to give a pulse on what's going on in the US with breast cancer. And it's based on population level data from cancer registries as well as the National Center for Health Statistics, where we get our mortality data. And it's important to follow cancer surveillance information because it tells us, where we're doing well and where we need to focus our efforts more.
And so where are we? What are
So,
we doing and what are we doing well?
yeah, so with breast cancer, what we found was that there's some really good news in that the breast cancer death rate continues to decline year over year since 1989. So we've had an overall drop of 43%, and that's great news. And there are decreases in the death rate for almost all groups. We're not seeing it from American Indians and Alaska Natives, but for all other groups we are. But the more concerning news is that breast cancer death rates continue to be 40% higher for black women than for white women, despite the fact that black women are less likely to be diagnosed with breast cancer.
Interesting. And Jacqueline, I want to ask you, because you have been through this experience. Tell us a little bit about, your journey.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. So, I actually come from a family with a history of cancer. My grandmother was diagnosed with brain cancer, my mom with breast cancer, both in their early 30s, and both died in, at least by 50 or shortly thereafter. And I received my diagnosis in my 30s. I shouldn't have been too surprised. And so, I've had initially a lumpectomy, chemotherapy, and radiation, and then it returned a year and a half later. And I decided, you know what, enough of this, and let's just get rid of this boob. Give me, I had a mastectomy, give me a new one, perk up the other one, and let's move forward with this journey. And so that's why I'm able to say, almost actually 20 years later, celebrating my survivorship. But the one thing I like to share, especially when we talk about Black women, is, when I look at cancer, cancer doesn't know what we look like. It doesn't know where we live. It doesn't know our religious belief, our sexual orientation. It doesn't know what color we are. And so when we talk about Black women and the burden of cancer in that community, I'm still frustrated because if cancer doesn't know all these things, then our access to adequate, affordable health care should be available to Black women such that we can help reduce some of those health disparities. I believe that a lot of it happens to do with our social determinants of health, and I think we need to get rid of some of those things.
Rebecca, your response, and also, what has the American Cancer Society come up with anything that really kind of explains this phenomenon that happens, with Black women more so? Well, you said give that statistic again, that we don't necessarily, um, I guess, have breast cancer at a higher rate. It's just that we die at a higher rate. Is that
Right.
correct me
And
with that?
that's what makes it so alarming
Mhm.
because mortality rates reflect incidence as well as survival. And so, even though Black women are less likely to ever have a breast cancer diagnosis, they're 40% more likely than white women to die from the disease. So, um, the reasons are complex, and it's partly because Black women are more likely to be diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer, which is more aggressive, but that doesn't come close to explaining the disparity. And studies continually show that Black women receive short shrift in the healthcare system for breast cancer care across the continuum, from lower quality mammograms to delays in the follow up of an abnormal test to delays in treatment and then lower quality treatment. And so there are so many places in the healthcare system where where there are gaps. And so we've been reporting this disparity, the same disparity for a decade. And there comes a point where and more needs to be done, as Jackie alluded to. I mean, it's time to stop reporting on the disparity and actually figure out how to eliminate the disparity. And so, to me, it has a lot to do with accountability in the healthcare system. I think that these healthcare systems need to take a hard look at how they're treating Black women differently all along the way, from screening to treatment. And then they need to be accountable for those differences. And Jackie can speak to this more than I can, but it seems to me like that could be a place where the federal government could step in. So it's frustrating as a cancer researcher to continue to report these same disparities.
So Jackie, you were there with Prince George's County Executive, also Brooks, this morning to launch this Breast Cancer Awareness Month event. And so and it's kind of hard to ask how that would happen, but as a result of the event this morning, is there any initiative that the county is going to come up with that may even help? I mean, of course, we always, during this month, we continue to promote the necessity for women to get their mammograms, how often they should get them. And now, based on what Rebecca's saying, maybe some further questions we ought to be asking. But talk to us about that. I mean, okay, so we had this kickoff this morning. Now what?
Well, so thank you for sharing that. And so the now what is, and a part of the initiative is to make sure women and men, actually, they get breast cancer too. So women and men in the community have the access they need to resources, tools, and financial assistance. And also make sure we're educating about prevention, because early detection is key. And so as part of that, we're making sure that we are providing mammography screenings. We have experts such as Dr. Rebecca sharing information about the risk associated with breast cancer and how people can help reduce their risk. And so it's about education, it's about prevention, and it's about making sure that people in the community actually have access to all those tools and resources. And that's one of the things, the commitment in the county that the executive has made.
So, for example, I mean, now you mentioned your family line, Jacqueline, your mom and others. And fortunately, you've been 20 years cancer free. But I mean, if you don't mind sharing with us, how do you still process sort of a legacy, right, that has gripped your family and the women in your family? How do you process that in your own head after what you've been through?
It's fair, because then I've witnessed I've been a caregiver, so I witnessed the deaths, and so my commitment is to make sure going forward that I'm advocating for resources and programs and continued investment in research, especially for the National Cancer Institute and the National Institute of Health. And the reason that's necessary is because I look at my mother's journey and I fast forward and look at my journey, and I recognize that I'm a beneficiary of continued research and the strides we've made and advancements we've made in breast cancer research, the new therapies, the new drug treatments and discoveries. And so we have to continue that commitment such that when someone like my mother and my grandmother are diagnosed in their early 30s and they don't live to see 50 and they have radical treatments, unlike myself, years later, it was completely different. And that's because of the advancements we made. So I'm a huge advocate and don't mind sharing with our congressional leaders that they need to continue to make investments in research. And they also need to make sure that we continue to have programs that support people who, unlike myself at the time, had great health care coverage and insurance, and who also had a great job. That's not everybody's story, and I recognize that. And so we need to make sure we are also thinking about and caring for people like that, and we do that through programs that we have in place and continued investment in them.
Rebecca, in the research that you all have done, was there anything else that you've that popped out, that one is just a nagging statistic, or is anything new? I mean, it's good that the numbers are declining. That's good news. Anything else you might be able to share with us?
Right. And that decline is because of earlier detection through screening, as well as increased awareness, things like what we're doing today, to increase people's knowledge, and also improvements in treatment, as Jackie mentioned. But the the things that stick for me are what I mentioned early on. Native American women, death rates are declining for breast cancer for every group except Native American women. So again, it's people of color who just aren't having the same benefits that others are experiencing with these interventions, with the better treatments. There's a gap. And the other thing is that, I hate to keep harping on it, but Black women have the lowest survival rates of any group for every stage of breast cancer and for every breast cancer subtype. So a lot of clinicians say, oh, well, the reason there's this big mortality disparity is because Black women have more aggressive breast cancer. And that is true. But the most common breast cancer in all women is hormone receptor positive breast cancer, and it's the most effectively treated, and that's one of the largest gaps for Black women. And so it's not the more aggressive cancers, it's really, across the board care.
I know neither one of you all can do anything about this, but no one likes to get a mammogram. I mean, I just don't understand why we have not come up with better technology for testing, a woman's breast than what this pancake waffle machine that we have to go through. And I don't know if that's a deterrent. Jackie, you might be able to. Is it in the food we eat? Is it lifestyle? What I mean, I know I'm talking about the test itself, and then some of the things that may contribute to the incidence of breast cancer that we have. But I'm sure women have talked to you about that, right?
I hear it all the time. I hear it all the time. And what I will share with women, while for some it may be uncomfortable, but we've actually made advancements in mammography. And I tell you why. Now we have 3D mammography. And when I was diagnosed, that did not exist. And my cancer didn't show up on my sonogram, and it didn't show up on the mammogram. And that's because
Well,
that's because I have dense breasts. And Dr. Rebecca can talk more about this, but it shows up, cancer shows up on the screening looking just like breast density does. And so it was missed. But we have 3D mammography now, so I don't have to worry about that. And so what I would share with women, it may be uncomfortable, but guess what? It may save your life as well. So
mm.
endure just a few minutes of discomfort, so that you can have, I like how the American Cancer Society used to say, so that you can have the gift of more birthdays.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah, I did see, I mean, we did have a report this week. I think we talked about it a little bit earlier with Katie Couric, who has, announced that she has breast cancer. And I saw a report where there's this new machine now that women can lay on, and their breast, is, I don't know, it's but it seems a lot more comfortable than what we all experience. But Rebecca, yeah, I mean, Jackie said maybe you can talk about the dense breast, because that's what Katie Couric says she has as well, and what that means.
Yeah, so women with dense breasts, which is more common among Black women.
What does that mean?
So it's actually a mammographic measure. You say dense breasts, and people think, oh, they feel their breasts and they think, oh, I have dense breasts. No, you can't decide like that. It's actually a mammographic measure. And so when you go for your mammogram, you can ask, do I have dense breasts? And if you do, they might treat you a little bit differently in that they might do, more imaging, or use the newer technology that's more sensitive that Jackie talked about. But so it is an issue. But and interestingly enough, uh, breast density is also associated with triple negative breast cancer. So women that have more dense breasts are more likely to be diagnosed with that more aggressive subtype. So, and obesity is also disproportionately higher in the Black community among women, and that is also associated with the more aggressive breast cancers. But um, the importance of screening cannot be overstated. The survival rates are in the 90s for early stage breast cancer, and then drops down to the 20s for distant stage disease. So, um, endure those few minutes of pain. It's not pleasant, but go celebrate afterwards and know that you've done something for your health.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know what medical procedures are not this uncomfortable. The dentist, you name it, I don't know. But yeah, this is really good. And I need to close, but with that, I mean, I'd like to ask you, Jackie, and you, Rebecca, sort of a closing word or a message that you would want to leave our viewers with, as it relates to how we can do better of taking care of ourselves. Jackie?
I would say be your best advocate. You know your body better than anyone. And if something feels wrong, please go check it out. Try to put the fear in the back of your mind and say to yourself, I'm doing what I need to do to protect myself and to save my life. And I would say to especially Black women in the community, continue to be fearless with your bodies, continue to be fearless with your health, and don't accept no. Keep moving forward. You are your champion.
Wonderful. Rebecca?
I would say all women, and especially Black women, need to start having conversations with their doctor about when it's appropriate to start screening. If you have a family history like Jackie does, you should start screening much earlier than women without that risk factor. And so you have to talk to your doctor early enough to know, when the time is right for you. And so have those conversations with your doctor. And then when you're 40, seriously consider starting screening. We recommend screening for everyone beginning at age 45, but um, all women should have the option to begin at 40. And so, honestly, for Black women, if I were Black, that's what I would choose, with no family history. And so, annual screening in your 40s, be sure you go. I mean, as Jackie said, it's scary. I mean, I can speak to personal experience. Oh, I don't want to go for this mammogram. What if cancer's diagnosed? I'm thinking that. And so, so I know everyone else is, but the thing is, you got to keep focused on those survival rates.
Exactly.
And you have such a better chance to put this behind you, if you are going to be diagnosed, if you go and have your screening. So screen, 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 early detection.
And there's unfortunately, a large community that can become a support network. So you're not alone. And that's one thing that I'm excited that you're a part of, Jackie, to just share that you're a part of a support community that has a successful story to tell. So I want to thank both of you all for being with us today and for sharing your stories and the report. And we will do our best to make sure that we can continue to convey that message. Go get yourself screened. Do it now. All right. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Okay. All right. Take care. Likewise.
Likewise.
So we're going to move on. We thought we were going to have someone from Chromatic Black, but it looks like we're going to have to reschedule that. But I think it's really great. They have a program that they wanted to tell us about, an Ida B. Wells Fund for filmmakers. And so I would still suggest, regardless of the fact that they were not here, to check out, is it Chromatic Black? Sherry, let's put that up. Abini she's the CEO. Abini Bloodworth is the CEO of Chromatic Black. And I just want folks to know that if you're in the filmmaking business, record or check out this information, because they are promoting an Ida B. Wells fund. And so there may be some money out there for you to do some great work as we continue to tell our stories. So we're going to move on, because we just took over some folks' time. Stacey Brown, national correspondent for the National Newspaper Publishers Association and our national writer here at the Washington Informer, and James Wright, who we said, don't go nowhere, James, stay with us.
Oh, boy. Send James away.
So glad to have you all with us, because we want, and Roach Brown. Yes. Now, I don't know if you all, James knows Roach. Stacey, do you know Roach?
I don't, but you know what's interesting? So, you know, obviously my last name is Brown.
Right.
I have a brother. I won't tell you his first name, but his nickname is Roach.
Wow.
One of his nicknames.
Whatever. Okay. So yeah, we're going to talk about Biden's historical move yesterday regarding these marijuana convictions that for small amounts of marijuana. But I wanted Roach on, Stacey and James, because Roach, has been an advocate for returning citizens for years. Maybe he can share a little bit of his story, but he has a take on this as well. So we want to talk about, exactly what the president did, how it impacts district residents. I know we're still trying to, unfold all this information. And then, Roach's perspective, because he is in touch with people that are in prison every hour of the day, or every minute of the day, except right while he's with us.
When I go to sleep.
Right. Roach, can you? Oh, go ahead, Stacey. And then Roach, I want you to talk
it's
about
interesting too, and Roach can tell you, I'm sure, that little part. I've never smoked marijuana, but the last little bit is called a roach.
Yes. Well, that's not how I got
something
my
new,
nickname.
Stacey.
Look, and now he's trying to explain that that's not how he got his name, but
No,
my
go ahead,
name,
Roach.
yeah. They call me Roach because I was a nuisance. Just like a roach was a pest, I was a pest to the teachers, the police, everybody. And I felt the only way to be alive or be successful is just let them know that you were there. And if whatever they say don't do, I would do. And that's how I got the name Roach, because I was in everybody's business and made everybody mad with me.
And so Roach hosts a show on WPFW every Tuesday morning. Is that correct, Roach?
Correct.
Yeah. Talk about it.
Crossroads has been on air for 13 years. We come every Tuesday morning from 10 to 11. The first Tuesday of each month, we broadcast live from Ben's Chili Bowl. We'll start back November the 1st. The COVID knocked us out of the box. And we've been dealing with criminal justice issues for 13 years. And any topic related, connected, or part of criminal justice, prisons, reentry, rehabilitation, parole, probation, etc., we've covered in the past 13 years. And part of that is because I served 30 years and 4 months on installment plan. And I received a presidential commendation from President Ford. So I understand this whole clemency process. And I'm glad you asked me about this, Denise, because it's not all what it's cracked out to be. The president announced he's going to pardon people for simple possession. That means having the weed in your possession. There's nobody in the federal prison system right now who's serving time for possession of weed. They're there for conspiracy and distribution. These guys got 20, 30, 40, 50, and life in some cases. This will impact the people from D.C. who've been sent to the feds who had simple possession of a bag of weed or a couple of joints. And it's not a full-fledged process. He granting the pardons or the commendations or letting people out. But these people lost homes, families, cars, jobs, all this. So I didn't see nothing in there about any resources or money. They sent $13 billion to the Ukraine, $25 million to help the migrants in D.C. What money is allocated to assist these men and women coming out who are eligible to come out because of Biden's decision to reclaim their homes, their cars, their furniture? How do they get any resources? It's going to be a while before this document is finalized to expunge this from their record. But what did they do in the meantime to live? How did they get a job? And it's still on your record, and there's no funds available for you to live or to survive. So it's an incomplete bill, and it sounds more good than what it is. When you look at the reality and you go through the different layers, you got men doing life for distribution, and they are not affected. So it should have been some kind of sliding scale.
So let me
Go
let me
ahead.
get Stacy in here really quick. So Stacy, your interpretation of what Biden has done so far, and I say your interpretation so far because Roach is right. We got to figure out where this is going. But
Yeah, so I hear what he's saying. If people have lost homes, cars, etc. The thing about it though is that this is a first step, really, and perhaps the president is not couching it as a first step, but it's a literal first step because presidents before him, including Obama and Clinton and others, didn't do anything about this.
and after admitting that they puffed or whatever, but didn't inhale. Go ahead.
That's very true. And so it has to start somewhere, and then it becomes up to people like, for instance, Eleanor Holmes Norton, who is pressuring, who sounds kind of like Roach sounds a little bit, but the DC delegate, she's concerned too that the president didn't do nearly enough when it comes to the administrations. They have a support for a rider that prohibits DC from spending local funds on the commercialization of recreational marijuana. She also called on the president to endorse giving the city the authority to grant clemency for crimes under local laws. And she said that the president exercises the authority to grant clemency for DC crimes, though until today, presidents had rarely used it in at least decades. So she has some issues too, Roach. And the overall issue is, why is anybody, you mentioned the distribution, well, now in just about everywhere it's legal. So why is anybody still doing time?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to get James in too, because I know that the mayor actually issued a statement yesterday, Bowser. James, you want to share that with us?
Yes, Mayor Bowser basically said that she complimented the president for taking the action that he did. And she talked about statehood and how important it is for DC to become the 51st state in order for it to make decisions in regarding to offenses such as this. See, now this goes really back to the states. The president is putting pressure, I guess you can call it that, on the states in order to move in terms of these marijuana convictions. And that's really what the mayor is talking about. Our city's ability to determine what we do in terms of marijuana and those people who have been convicted of that. I mean, what the president has done is great, and it covers DC because of that. But ultimately, statehood, and this is what she's talking about, is what we need in order for us to determine our own affairs in this.
And I think Roach knows that, for some of the crimes, and he can explain that, our folks go to federal prisons, right?
Yes.
Talk about that, Roach. I mean, we don't have a state prison.
All DC prisoners are transferred to the Federal Bureau of Prisons since we don't have Lawton. And most of our guys got locked up for weed, had a gun, or housebreaking. So you got 2, 3, 4 charges. And you can talk about, you got 4 charges, and one of them is possession of weed. What about the other 3? Then we're talking about, I just sent you an article, Denise, about this crisis we have of men and women who did 30, 40, 50 years in prison coming out. And if we got over 6,500 men and women in the federal system, some who are eligible to be released under Biden's plan, what's available for them when they return? Housing, jobs, etc. And it should have been, like I said, a sliding scale. For those people, 23 states now have all legalized marijuana. And you still got men doing life inside of prison for marijuana. But this is only for possession, having it in your possession. Those men should have some kind of relief too, in women, in terms of a sliding scale. If you got locked up for distribution or conspiracy and you got 30 years, it should be some kind of relief for them, since we recognize that marijuana is not as severe as it was and everybody's relaxing the laws. But it hasn't gone far enough. And we talking about a few thousand DC guys will be returning to this city, Denise, with no homes, no jobs, no employment prospect. And even though he gave a pardon today, the documentation won't come down for some time. So if you go to apply for a job and say you don't have a record, you got a pardon, show me the proof.
Is that the case, Stacey? Do we know? And Roach, I'm not that I'm questioning what you already know, but I mean, what kind of expediency does this have? When when does this take effect? And I mean, you've got records that now have to be expunged, right? Is that how it works?
Yes.
And that's just it. It's the process, and a pardon is immediate. However, it's as he described. You have to process things, and you know that the Bureau of Prisons, they're not going to move that fast. They're not expected to move that fast as far as you talking about paperwork and things of that nature. Court systems and things, it has to go through a process, unfortunately. But the pardon, and like I said, it's effective immediately. So if somebody's in jail right now or prison right now, they're coming home. If you have been out, that now you know it's coming off your record. It's just a matter. It could be weeks, it could be months, but it's coming off your record, or years in some
Unless
cases.
you have advocates, people that kind of will work for you to make sure that that's not what's holding you up. I mean, that's one reason I appreciate having Roach or listening to Roach's show, because you never, what happens, particularly with our prisons now being so packed, with Black men and women, that when they come out, I mean, it's almost like a death sentence.
It is. Denise, another thing is that we haven't considered is that there's a lot of people walking the streets now who were arrested for possession of marijuana and lost their jobs, lost their employment, their houses, and they're still in the streets.
Right.
How does this law affect them? Do they have to file separately? Is there a part for the people incarcerated and for those folks who are not incarcerated? What do you do and where do you go? How do you get relief? And there's quite a few people in Washington, D.C., thousands who've been arrested for having a joint in their car or in their mouth. And because of that, you have to take a urinalysis. And when their urine came back, they lost their job. So how do them people... Go ahead.
That's why we're going to be really listening to Crossroads, because we know that Roach Brown's going to get the answer to those questions and tell these folks where they ought to go, who they need to talk to, and what they do to get those records cleaned up so that they no longer have that on their records. Stacey?
Yeah, I just want to go back to that point that Roach was making, just to amplify his concern with how long these pardons take. So the Department of Justice, I'm seeing now, it says those eligible may still need to prove that Biden's proclamation applies to them in order to achieve the full benefits of the pardon. And the president has asked the Attorney General, acting through the pardon attorney, to issue those persons certificates to establish the proof. And then there's a whole thing about how to get this certificate. The administration said they're going to make those certificates available as soon as possible. So
that's why I say this is a story we need to follow. I mean, we've gotten James. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm gonna let you.
I was just going to say real quickly, and this falls on Stacey's earlier point. This is just a first step. Congress needs to pass a law in terms of this, and explaining, like Roach is alluding to, retroactivity. So this is something Congress needs to do. President Biden should be praised, I guess, for this, but this is something that Congress needs to do.
Well, the point is that people are going to come back, and or people are out there right now that have this on their records. They need to know where to go to get, some help, to some advocacy, some guidance, some counseling, to make sure that whatever this application process is, that it works fully. And we need to follow that as a news source. Rose, go ahead.
As I spend a lot of time in the federal system as well as in Lawton. And one of the things that's going to come out of this that we're going to see a little later on down the pipe is that for those people who are arrested for possession, the BOP authorities is going to say they're going to set a limit. It had to be in a half a gram or 3/4 of a gram. And if you had 6 grams, you're not eligible, even though you got possession. So they're going to put all kinds of little jiggy boogie, little rules, regulations, to make it different. Go ahead.
That might be where your biggest, one of your biggest problems with this action, because the letter of it says simple possession.
But no amount. There you go. And they're going to decide how much you had, whether it fit that criteria or not. And this is left up to correctional staff and caseworkers.
Well, I really appreciate you all taking this opportunity, like at the last minute, to come on and share this conversation, have this conversation, which is greatly needed, and it needs to continue, so that we can be a source of information for people who have been successful in getting their records expunged, but also giving them a place to go, like here at WIN TV or Crossroads or Stacey, your show.
Let it be known.
Let it be known. I'm having a brain freeze right
That's
now.
okay.
Let it be known. That's why we're out here. That's why we're these voices, so that folks can celebrate and also advocate for justice for all people, but particularly for Black people in our community. So thank you all for being with us. We are way over time, but it's
no smoking on the job, James. Don't give me ideas. Don't give me ideas.
We're over time, but we're on time with regards to this topic. So thank you so much. Thank you, Roach. Thank you, Stacey. Thank you, James.
Thank you.
All righty.
And
you know where James, you know where Roach was going. Merry Christmas to you, Roach. That is his theme there, and I don't care what time of year, what time of day, whatever. Roach will wish you a Merry Christmas, and we appreciate that. So that's all we have for today. I want to thank you all for tuning in. We hope to see you back here next week when the Washington Informer will be celebrating 58 years. 58 years. Yes, October 16th is our anniversary, and we are just going to celebrate it right here with you on WIN TV. So until then, take care, enjoy the weekend before the winter comes back, and I will see you next Friday.